I'm going to start right off by introducing a speaker. And Bob Barton is my friend. He's been a mentor. If you know Bob Barton, he's a master storyteller. You've met him through his books. At Pembroke table back there, he is Telling Stories Your Way. Bob has written a novel called Trouble on the Voyage. Bob and I work side by side at OISE UT, where he teaches the additional qualification courses in drama at the moment. We had a wonderful experience in London, England last summer, and we're going to repeat it. If anybody wants to take AQ with Bob and Larry next summer, we promise you a great time. Just see us afterwards. Oh, that's another plug. But today I'm introducing a book that he co-wrote with Myra Bars, Bob Barton, and David Booth wrote. This book is not about drama. It's about new ways to inspire students. Bob Barton is a pioneer of drama education in Ontario, and we're lucky to hear from him today. My friend Bob.
Good morning, everyone. How are you?
Good morning.
Well, that's as far as the cord goes. You're lucky on this side. I can't reach you. Do you believe it's November already? I just shook my head the other day. I thought, where did the rest of the autumn go? And, you know, I was listening to CBC radio just, I guess it was last Friday or so, and everybody was complaining about November, talking about how gloomy November is and how many people get depressed and on and on. I had to turn the radio off. I was getting depressed listening to it. But, you know, I always find November one of the most dramatic months of the year. Well, think about it. The trees have dropped their cladding, and once again we see that beautiful tracery against the skies. The dark is rising, and we are gradually making our way towards the winter solstice, and then the great festival of lights that will begin to try to push back the dark. So all of that comes to mind when I think of November, and I have a story that every November just has to get told. Moon was lonely. You see, he had fallen in love with a young reindeer herder on the earth beneath, and he couldn't stop thinking about her. "Put her out of your mind," warned the stars. "She belongs on earth. Your place is up here in the heavens, shining along with the rest of us." But Moon paid no attention. He dreamt only of having the young woman by his side. And then one night, he looked down and he saw her. She was returning to her camp on the back of a very large reindeer, and Moon was suddenly overcome with a powerful urge to fetch her. Immediately, Moon began to climb down out of the sky. Now, at first, the young woman didn't see him. And then all of a sudden, she looked up and she said, "Oh, how bright the moon appears tonight." And she raised her hand to shield her eyes from Moon's brightness. And that's when she saw his long, skinny arms and his narrow, spindly legs. The sight of Moon was absolutely terrifying. "Oh," cried the woman, "Moon's coming after me. What can I do?" And at that moment, her reindeer turned its head and spoke and said quickly, "Jump from my back. I'll dig a hole in the snow for you to hide in." And so the young woman leapt from the reindeer's back. And with his powerful hind legs, Reindeer kicked a hole in the snow. The young woman jumped into the hole, and Reindeer kicked snow all up around her, leaving only the top of her white fur hood exposed. And then Reindeer moved off into the distance. By now, Moon had reached the surface of the earth. His narrow, spindly legs felt very strange beneath the weight of his body. He turned from side to side. He had expected to see the reindeer herder and her reindeer. He had not expected to see an empty landscape. "Where is she?" muttered Moon. "She was here only moments ago." And even as he spoke, he was practically standing right on top of her. And then suddenly, Moon spied reindeer tracks in the snow, and he started to follow. But he soon thought better of the idea, for a great, heavy feeling had come over him. His light had started to fade. I'd better go back, thought Moon. And slowly and with great difficulty, Moon climbed back into the sky. And the higher he climbed, the brighter he became. And the higher he climbed, the stronger he felt. And soon, Moon floated easily among the stars. On Earth, the reindeer returned, kicked the snow away from the young woman. She leapt onto his back and made haste to her camp. But just as she was entering her tent, Moon looked down for a second time and saw her. This time, he didn't climb out of the sky. He plunged straight towards the earth. It was the reindeer who saw him coming. "Oh," he cried, "the Moon Man, he's returning for you." "I've got to hide," said the young woman. "But where?" "I know," said Reindeer. "I could use my magic. I could transform you into a tent pole." "No," said the young woman, "he's liable to crush the tent." "Oh, you could become one of the skins on the sleeping platform." He might carry that away." "I've got it," said Reindeer. "I can turn you into an oil lamp. In the glare of Moon's brightness, you will not be seen." And that's exactly what Reindeer did. He struck his front hoof 3 times on the surface of the snow. And where the young woman had stood, there was now a tiny oil lamp glowing with a bright flame. Reindeer hid behind the tent. By now, Moon was picking his way across the surface of the snow. "Where are you?" he cried. And then as he reached the tent, he tore open the flap and barged inside. "Where are you hiding?" he demanded. "Are you behind the tent pole?" He looked behind the tent pole. No one was hiding there. "You're under the sleeping platform." He lifted the sleeping platform. No one was hiding there. "I know, you're in the cooking pot." He tipped over the cooking pot. No one was hiding there. Moon stepped back outside. How does she do that, he thought. How does she keep disappearing like that? All of a sudden, there was a giggle from inside the tent. Moon burst back inside, but nothing had changed. No one was there. Only the tiny lamp flame whirled and danced in the sudden breeze Moon had made as he entered. Moon stepped back outside. He was not feeling at all well. His light was nearly out. The great heavy feeling had come over him. The stars were right, you know, he thought. I've no business being down here. He turned and started to move away, when all of a sudden a voice cried out, "Here I am, Moon Man!" Moon turned. There was the young woman. She was transformed back to her human self. She was standing right beside the tent flap. Moon lurched towards her, tripped over his feet, and crashed to the snow. She was on him in a flash. She wrapped her reindeer harness around his legs, tied it tight, leapt to her feet, and said, "So, Moon Man, I have captured you." But Moon begged her, "Please, please, untie my legs. Let me return to the skies." "And if I do, Moon Man, I know what you'll do. You'll just grow strong again, come chasing after me some other time." "No, no, please, release me. I will reward you and your people." "Oh, a reward? And what would that reward be, Moon Man?" But by now, Moon's voice was so faint, she had to put her ear right up against his lips to listen. And when he had finished moving his lips, a smile broke out on the young woman's face, and she leapt to her feet, and she untied Moon's legs, and then she whistled to her reindeer, and she tossed one end of the harness to the reindeer, who caught it in his teeth, and with the other end, she wrapped it around Moon's arms, and together, while she pulled, reindeer pushed, and slowly, slowly, Moon got to his feet, and he put one arm around the young woman, and one arm around the reindeer, and he took a few halting steps, and he began to climb back up into the sky. And the higher he climbed, the brighter he became. And the higher he climbed, the stronger he felt. And soon, Moon had regained his rightful place among the stars. Moon did reward the young woman and her people. He became their nightly beacon, guiding them across the frozen Arctic lands. And he became the first calendar, measuring the year for them. He became the moon of the old bull, the moon of the birth of calves, and the moon of waters. He became the moon of leaves, the moon of warmth, and the moon of the shedding of antlers. And he became, for her and her people, the moon of love among the wild deer, the moon of the first winter, and the moon that we are all under tonight, the moon of the shortening of days. And true to his word, moon never came down to earth again. One of the most exciting things about telling a story is that although you're all sitting in this room, I have absolutely no idea where you've been in the last 10 minutes. I mean, in your heads, I have no idea where you've been. Now, it's quite possible that some of you fell fast asleep, and you managed to do that with your eyes open after years of boring staff meetings. And if you fell asleep, I'm absolutely delighted. You obviously needed the rest, and I'm happy to have provided it. On the other hand, you may have found yourself drifting in and out of the story. Perhaps there's a bit of unfinished business that has to be taken care of later today, and you've been sort of planning how to do that. And although you were in the story, you were also out of the story. Or maybe you listened to the story. I really have no idea. Because you see, once the words pass through my lips, I lose complete control of them. When they enter this acoustic space, you take over from that point. So I'm wondering if we could just take about 30 seconds to find an elbow partner, somebody, and I'd like you just to try to recall with your elbow partner something that you recall going on in your head as the story was being told. And if you fell asleep, that is honorably reportable. Okay? So you got 30 seconds. Find an elbow partner. What was going on in your head as you listened to the story? That's about 30 seconds. Now, is there anyone who feels sufficiently brave to, in front of this entire assembly, tell us one thing that was going on in your head that you were aware of? Is there anyone at all who feels brave enough to speak in front of us all? What was going on in your head? One thing. At the back. Ah.
I was thinking that it was inevitable.
So you were relating to the dilemmas of the characters in terms of they would never, ever have any hope of some sort of, okay, thank you. Yes, over here.
So I was thinking about, I'm pretty sure you used to tell another story that involved the moon. So I would think, oh, this is going to be the story about the moon, but it was a different story. But, you know, so I've made sort of, as you said, a connection.
Okay, and the interesting thing is, when we listen to a story, that's one of the things we're doing in our heads. We're going through our Rolodex file of stories because we want to know, what is this story like? If we're going to invest this much energy in listening, we want to get out in front of the story and anticipate where it's going. And part of the fun of the listening is you know, where's this going? Can I predict what's happening next? And what makes the story interesting is when it surprises us and takes a turn we weren't expecting, or when it goes off in a different direction. Anything else that you talked about? Yes?
tell the story like you did instead of reading it off the sheet of paper that I do.
Okay, so what you're doing is you're telling me that you're looking at the performance. And that's exactly what we all do. We judge the performance. If I'm working with 3-year-olds, I've got exactly 10 seconds to grab them, or it's back to the sand table, you know? So the performance is important. And of course, there's nothing more powerful than the story coming out of a human face with no barrier in between. And the teller also feeds off the listeners. You were very intense, and your intensity helped me to drop down into the story. If I had a group of squirming 5-year-olds or a group of squirming grade 12s, they squirm too, it makes me tell the story faster and perhaps have to be editing on the fly. So that really is, that counts. Anything else you talked about besides, these are wonderful, wonderful thoughts that you're offering. There's no wrong answers, by the way. So, you know, if you're the least bit reticent to speak because you think you might have be off course, you're not. Well, oh, yes.
I was visualizing what was happening in the story, like the pictures of the characters, what they looked like, whether they had dark hair, bright hair. The moon changed once you told the story further. It became from something that was bright and warm to something that was a little bit more evil.
Okay, could you all hear that at the back? Visualizing, seeing the story happen in the mind's eye. Hands up if you saw anything at any time. Quite a few, yeah. It's interesting to me that very often with young people, he'll say, I didn't see anything. And if I give them a piece of paper and ask them to draw a picture from the story, they get right to work and come up with an amazing image. Because one of the things I believe we must do is we must make our young people aware of their imaginations in action. So often when we present story or text of any kind, they suspect that we have an ulterior motive. And that ulterior motive is in the activities or the questions or whatever they're going to be hit with. This opportunity just to really go back and reflect on what my mind was doing takes time. Sometimes, you know, if they think they have to try and guess. And I say, no. If you didn't see anything, you didn't see anything. You know, I don't want you to make up anything. And eventually, as they begin to realize that we really mean it, then you get some fabulous responses. I want you to take that elbow partner again. And this time, when you saw moon, what did moon look like? So can you quickly describe to your elbow partner what your moon looked like? And if you didn't see it, don't fake it. Just say, I didn't see it. All right? So, is there anyone who would like to describe the moon that you saw in your imagination? Anyone want to have a go at that? Oh, you're so modest. Yes.
Originally, the moon was a round, shining, bright globe. But as he took on sinister characteristics, in my mind, he became gray.
Ah, so it changed color. Fascinating. Yes,
I own
Susan.
the book, so I know what it looks like on the cover.
But that's one person's interpretation, Susan.
But I kept seeing the cover, except the moon came off the cover.
All right.
It started to move.
Okay. All right. Well, let me just do a survey. How many saw a full moon? How many saw a half moon? Anybody see a sliver of a moon? Okay. And did anybody have features like the face on the moon, nose, ears, things like that? This is a wonderful image when I get young people to draw it because I'm always fascinated to see what, and the last time I did this, I had far more sliver moons because they put big hook noses on and big ears and spindly legs and skinny arms and things like that. Now,
I'm dating myself, but it looked like a Gumby,
okay,
but yellow.
yes, yes, terrific.
Originally, it was a full round moon, but then as he became more human and was coming down to earth, I realized that doesn't make any sense. You're mentioning his legs and his arms. So my mind physically transformed him on the spot to be more human-like, so that the story would make sense to me.
Okay, fabulous. Wonderful storytelling that's going on in our heads as we listen, isn't it? So we're not just sitting idly by, wasting time. I like to call this Pilates for the mind, because our imagination is getting a workout. And we have to take those words and we have to turn that into something in our heads. Now, one of the things that I get a lot from young people are questions. The story triggers questions. So I wonder if we can just take this opening statement, I wonder, okay? I wonder. And if anyone would like to say, I wonder, and something about the story that might have occurred to you, we'll just do this at random. Anybody who has an I wonder, just shout out, I wonder.
I wonder what made him so interested in her. What was so special about her?
I wonder what would happen if you slipped off the ladder thing going up and down.
I wonder if he'd said please if it would have had a different outcome.
I wonder what message the story sends to little girls.
I wonder why she revealed herself and didn't stay the lamp till he went away.
Okay, get the idea? And very often you get some fascinating statements. I had one child who said, the problem with Moon was he didn't know how to talk to a lady. It's a grade kindergarten child. I didn't know how to talk to a lady. I wanted to take this kid up to Yonge and Eglinton and drop into a few bars. Okay. The world must have been very strange that night. If you stop to think about it, the light would have been changing. There would have been times of deep, dark shadows, times of blinding light. It must have been, for the people who experienced it, a strange time. So I'd like you all right now just to stand where you are. It doesn't get any rougher than this. Just stand beside your place, all right? And that night, you were observing everything through your telescope. So I don't know what size your telescope is, but you want to sort of get your telescope at your side or get behind it or something like that. I see great big telescopes that people have to look in a little peephole at the top, and some are just holding them to their eye like pirates. That's great. Anything at all. Okay? So we're just going to take about 10 seconds, and I want you to look through the telescope. Maybe you can close your eyes. It's a funny way to look, but this is an imaginary telescope after all. And we're going to try to imagine through that telescope what was going on in the skies that night. 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Fabulous. Now, if there's anybody who would like to complete this sentence, I saw. Anybody who wants to shout out, when you look through that telescope, what did you see? I saw. Keep going.
I saw a shooting star.
Thank you. Keep going. Lovely. Keep going.
Constellation.
Okay.
Stars trying to hold moon back.
Okay.
The moon waxing and waning.
Thank you. Okay, we can sit down. For children, it must have been an amazing sight. And children are so full of questions, aren't they? So many questions. So I'd like you to work with that elbow partner again. And I'd like one of you to take the role of a child filled with questions about what was going on in the skies that night. And the other partner will be a parent. How does a parent handle these questions? Are you going to give the kids straight goods, or are you going to try to cover up? Are you going to try to change the subject? How does a parent handle these questions? So, quickly decide who's going to be the child, who's going to be the parent, and as soon as you're ready, have the child ask questions. And this time, I'm going to walk around the room. And if I hold my hand over you and your partner's heads, just start the conversation. You're not going to do the whole thing. I'm just going to be sampling. I want to hear the kinds of questions the children asked about that event. I want to hear the kinds of things parents said to the children about it. Okay? So only if I come and stand over you, and it'll only be for about a few seconds. Oh, hang on, folks. We'll have to listen very carefully because we won't hear them. All right, let's just start again.
Why was the reindeer magical? Because it was granted magical powers. Why did he turn the lady into a...
So what kind of food does the moon man eat?
Cheese.
Cheese? It must be something more than cheese.
Well, why is it getting bright and dark at the wrong time of day? Well, I don't know. Maybe because the clouds are coming in front of the moon and then moving away again.
Well, why did the moon want the lady?
Because the moon has feelings. What a moon!
Well, up in the sky, there are many kinds of light.
Are you two working together?
Yeah.
Okay, just fire a question.
How does the moon get into the sky?
Good answer.
Same way the stars get to the
Okay.
Why would the lady not just stop and talk to the moon? That's a good question. I think we should ask why they're communicating.
Are you two working together? Oh, these two. Okay.
Do you think this story could really happen?
What do you think?
Oh, I love that. Typical parent. Turn the question back on the kid. Yeah. What I wanted to show you was how easy it is to do role play. It's no big fuss to do what you've just done, to try to think in the mind of a character, and to have a few moments to try and step in that character's shoes and get inside their world. Did any of you as children ever read any of George MacDonald's books? The Princess and Curdie, The Princess and the Goblin, The Light Princess, At the Back of the North Wind. Any of those ring? Ah, I see a hand up, hooray! Did you read the whole series? Princess and the Goblin. Okay, all right. Nobody else read those? Oh, Kat, you read it as well? Which ones? All of them? Or? Okay, they're still in print, and you can get them at the public library. They're wonderful fantasies, and fantasy has certainly had an amazing comeback since Harry Potter in recent years. But the writer of those books was George MacDonald. And MacDonald was a prolific writer, but he was also extremely interested in education. And he believed passionately in the power of imagination to help humans transcend selfishness and greed and cruelty. And he believed that it was the power of the imagination that we should use to educate young and old alike. And for him, the necessary food was story. And he said that the teacher's job is to awaken the force of the child's imagination. And the child's job is to exercise and grow by means of thinking, feeling, questioning, and understanding. Stories and role play, unlike straight-up information, can change our lives because they directly involve us in bringing us into inner worlds, the inner worlds of the protagonist. And I'll just finish with one quote from our book, from Vygotsky. The Russian psychologist Vygotsky called child play a leading activity because he thought it influenced and led young students' wider development. In play, students can go beyond their own limits. In play, it is as though a child were a head taller than himself. Through play and pretending, which are early forms of drama, students access modes of behavior and ways of speaking that they don't use in their everyday lives. Vygotsky thought that this kind of pretending was imagination in action. There's more about imagination in action in the book, and by the way, the moon story is here as well. Thank you.